In 1997, pallbearers carried a casket to the Calliope Projects in New Orleans, chanting, "Gangster, gangster," with every step. A gangster, street talk for a tough guy, has died when they set it down near Rose Tavern on Talia Street. Someone poured beer over the lid. The man inside never recorded a song, but inside No Limit Music Records, pulling over $100 million a year, he was the one person nobody wanted problems with. All right, and he got a few dollars. I go with me. You know, you want to give me mine. You know what I hang in there. I know where he at, dude. His name was Randall Calliope Slim Watts, Master P's cousin. So, how did No Limit's most feared enforcer end up dead in the same projects Master P had been trying to escape since 1990? But he was A.A. Kingpin, essentially. He was the big dog in the Calliope. And what does the man most people believe killed him have to do with Birdman and Cash Money? Let's get into it. The Calliope Projects, officially named the B.W. Cooper Housing Development, sat in New Orleans' 3rd Ward, bounded by Calliope Street to the north and Talia Street to the south. Rows of 2- and 3-story brick buildings surrounded interior courtyards that served as the social center of the complex and as the primary staging ground for the drug trade that consumed it. By the late 1980s, the Calliope was one of the most violent public housing developments in America. Between 1993 and 2004, 88 people were murdered inside or immediately around the Calliope. In 1994 alone, the city of New Orleans recorded 424 music, 86 per 100,000 residents, making it the deadliest major city in the United States that year. The drug economy inside the Calliope operated on a scale that dwarfed most street-level operations. In the late 1980s, a dealer named Sam Scully Clay ran the projects. Clay was gunned down in 1987, and the power vacuum triggered a war over the drug trade inside music, the complex. Control passed through Glenn Matt before landing with a man named Richard Pena. Pena turned Calliope into a distribution hub unlike anything New Orleans had seen. His organization was smuggling over 300 kilos of coke per month, roughly 800 pounds, from Houston, Miami, and Mexican cartel sources. Pena paid a corrupted New Orleans Police Department officer named David Singleton for protection. Singleton tipped off Pena's crew about raids, ran license plates on potential informants, and actively shielded the operation from federal attention. Over the course of the 1990s, the Pena organization was connected to more than 20 murders, including 5 partners Pena suspected of double-crossing him, 2 police informants, and at least 1 rival dealer. You know how it is in the streets. You don't have when you in that life. Man, it's either be eaten. Yeah, you know that's it. The violence inside the Calliope wasn't abstract. Residents heard gunfire from their kitchens. Children, music, walked past bloodstains on concrete to get to school buses. The courtyards that were designed as communal gathering. Spaces had become kill zones. Open sightlines, limited exits, no cameras. NOPD officers patrolled the perimeter, music, but rarely entered the interior of the complex on foot after dark. Less than 2 miles from the Calliope sat the Magnolia Projects, officially the C.J. Pete Housing Development in the Central City neighborhood. The Magnolia competed with the Calliope for the highest homicide rate of any public housing development in the city. Both projects ran their own drug distribution networks, and both produced crews that enforced territorial lines through ambushes and drive-bys. Calliope versus Magnolia was a generational rivalry. Project kids inherited it the way they inherited the block they lived on. I got a chance to feel the whole barrier life. And then by me growing up in the Calliope Projects in New Orleans, I was able to feel that life. And then this was the world Calliope Slim grew up in. It was also the world that produced Percy Miller, the man who would become Master P. The Miller family was large even by Calliope standards. Percy, Music, Corey, and Vashon, who would become Master P, C Murder, and Silk the Shocker, were 3 of at least 14 Music children in the extended Miller household. At various points, multiple siblings and cousins squeezed into their grandparents' apartment inside the complex. I was living in a household with 12 kids, and I lived with my grandparents. Their mother, Sonia C. Miller, raised the boys in Calliope while the crack epidemic swallowed entire blocks around them. Master P's older brother, Kevin Miller, also came up in the projects. Kevin was in his early 20s music when the violence peaked. On September 14, 1990, Kevin Miller was shot in the head and the back. The shooter was a 17-year-old named Kenneth Williams. Kevin died from his injuries. The murder hit the Miller family at the core. Kev was a gangster. Music. Kev was a gangster, and an EOE passed away. Underscore my partner T-Up. He went into deep depression behind that. Kevin was the older brother, the one who had music, been in the streets ahead of everybody else in the family. His death put a timestamp on what staying in the Calliope could cost. I got into it because I wanted to get my grandmother a house. I had a why. The why was I want to take my grandmother out the projects that raised me. Within weeks, P took a $10,000 malpractice insurance payout from his grandfather's death, not drug money, not label money, insurance money, and left New Orleans. He relocated to Richmond, California, a small city across the bay from San Francisco that was running its own crack epidemic. P was gone already. He was in California. Richmond had one of the highest per capita murder rates in the state. P wasn't escaping violence. He was moving to a different version of it. But in Richmond, P opened a record store called No Limit Records. The store became a label. The label became an empire. Master P left Calliope. Calliope Slim stayed. Randall Calliope Slim Watts was Master P's cousin. The two grew up together in the projects, ran the same blocks, knew the same people. But where Master P pivoted to music and business, Slim went deeper into the streets. According to multiple sources, music, including the criticism, calm investigation of his life, Slim became an enforcer for Richard Pena's Coke organization, the same operation moving 300-plus kilos a month through the Calliope. Kev was a gangster. Music, Kev was a gangster. Slim's role wasn't distribution. He wasn't cutting product or running corner sales. Slim carried out contract work for Pena's organization. The men Pena wanted dead, the partners he suspected of skimming, the informants feeding information to the feds, the rivals encroaching on his territory. Slim handled the enforcement side of that business. His name circulated through multiple federal investigations into Killings Music, connected to Pena operation, though he was never formally charged. Master P addressed his cousin's role directly in an interview with Feds magazine. He was a notorious hitman. It is what it is. He killed people, too. So, I guess that's how the game goes. That was one of the only times P ever spoke about Slim publicly. In 1995, Master P moved No Limit Records from music, Richmond back to New Orleans. A year later, he signed a distribution deal with Priority Records that would become one of the most important contracts in hip-hop history. The deal gave No Limit access to Music Priority's national distribution network, but P structured the terms so that he retained 100% ownership of his master recordings. The split was 85-15. Music, 85 cents of every dollar went back to No Limit. Most artists at major labels were seeing a fraction of that. You got this deal with Priority. MHM, that was just unheard of. The 80/20th deal, 80/20th deal. And you got to keep 100% of your masters. Yeah, the catalog exploded. Master P's Ice Cream Man went platinum in 1996. Ghetto D went triple platinum in 1997. Hello, Ice Cream Man, I did my thing, man. Music is like, music, my escape. His brother Corey, See Murder, released Life or Death in 1998 and moved over 1 million copies. Mia X Mystical, Silk the Shocker, the group TRU. No Limit was shipping albums fast to Music, then Priority could press them. By 1998, No Limit's catalog had moved over 20 million units. P's net worth would eventually peak at an estimated $350 million. Through all of it, Calliope Slim was still in Calliope, still working for Pena. He wasn't on the roster. He wasn't cutting features, but he was in P's circle, one of the first people Master P reconnected with when he came back to New Orleans. Slim was something of a folk outlaw inside the projects, a figure people respected on the basis of what he'd done and who he worked for. When P needed someone from the old world, music, who understood the stakes of the new one, Slim was there, like we wasn't no. Rappers, like, but we all come there at the same time. We got a drop in the I'm 'Bout It movie. You know, I was big man, he was half music, pint. See, my brother, he'll take care of you. I'ma tell you like this, my man, you ain't get it, brother. In May 1997, Master P released I'm 'Bout It, a straight-to-video film set in New Orleans that blended real footage from the Calliope projects with scripted scenes. The cast included Master P, C Murder, Silk the Shocker, Music, and Mia X. But scattered throughout the film were real figures from the projects, not actors, not extras, but actual people from the Calliope playing themselves. One of them was Calliope Slim. In his scene, Slim is walking his dog to the projects, moving through the courtyard near the buildings he'd grown. Up in, he stops to talk with Master P. The scene is brief, less than 2 minutes of screen time, but it captures something no other footage does. Calliope Slim on camera, alive, walking through the neighborhood he never left. And he in that movie, that bounty movie. He the one, he walked through the courtyard with the Rottweiler, and he handed it to his brother Dub, Music, and then him and P standing up in the Calliope, talking. The film reportedly sold over 200,000 copies on VHS in its music first week. That footage is the only widely available visual record of Randall Watt alive. A few months after the film's release, he was dead. The details of Calliope Slim's murder remain sparse. New Orleans had investigations in the 1990s had a clearance rate that hovered around 30%. More murders went unsolved than solved. Sometime in 1997, the exact date has never been confirmed publicly, Slim was chased down and shot in the Talia Street courtyard of the Calliope Projects, near the intersection of Talia and Dorgenois Streets. According to local crime reporting and accounts later referenced Music in criticism, Calm's investigation of the case, Slim was en route to carry out a contract killing for the Pena organization when he was shot. The name most frequently connected to his death is Terrence Gangster Williams, the half-brother Brian Birdman Williams and Ronald Slim Williams, the co-founders of Cash Money Records. Terrence wasn't a background figure. He was one of the most feared men in New Orleans in the 1990s, operating out of the Magnolia Projects while his brothers built Cash Money into a commercial force. They tried to put Randall's murder on me, like all the people who got hurt coming up out of Calliope. Right here, it's got to be Gangster, but they forgot his other little young gangster that's lurking from all around the city. He helped bankroll Cash Money's early operations and ran a street crew called the Hot Boys, the same name Birdman later gave to the label's platinum-selling group featuring Lil Wayne, Juvenile, BG, and Turk. Years later, in a Vlad TV interview, Terrence Williams would admit to being involved in 40 murders across New Orleans. Music, pulling the trigger himself in 15 of them. I mean, when you cooperated and you gave up MHM, the 40 murders. Music, now, you were not the shooter in all 40. No, the Calliope Projects and the Magnolia Projects had been at war for years. Music, the rivalry predated both record labels. It wasn't about No Limit versus Cash Money. It was about territory, drug routes, and bodies that had been stacking since the late 1980s. The two developments sat in different wards. Music ran different crews and sourced product from different supply chains. When No Limit and Cash Money rose to national prominence in the mid-1990s, the project rivalry gained a commercial dimension, but the violence underneath it was older than either label. When Calliope Music Slim was killed, the neighborhood didn't need an arrest to know where the tension pointed. Terrence Williams addressed the rumors directly in a Vlad TV interview. "I ain't have nothing to do with that," Williams said, denying any involvement in Calliope. Slim's death. "Nah, I ain't even around enough to touch him. Not Randall. That crushed me, too, even though I had Music. Had a little war was on with his brother and in friends and his little homies." In another Vlad TV segment, Williams was asked about a rumor that Master P had put a $100,000 bounty on his head after Slim was killed. Williams acknowledged hearing the rumor, but maintained he had no connection to murder. "When I first heard the rumor, it was $15,000. I say, tell P If I catch him down here, we can hold court. I'm trying to see him. Williams was never charged. No one was. The case remains officially unsolved. The thing that helped me was my daughter. I was speaking about earlier. She was born the same night Randall was killed. The Calliope buried Calliope Slim the way the Calliope buried its own. A second-line procession moved through the projects. Pallbearers carrying the casket through the courtyard near Rose Tavern on Talia Street. Music, people chanted gangster, gangster, as the procession passed. A gangster, street talk for a tough guy, has died. When the pallbearers set the casket down, someone poured beer over the lid. The neighborhood came out. Project residents, music, No Limit affiliates, people who had known Slim since he was a kid running the same blocks Master P ran. No Limit never publicly acknowledged Slim's death in any press release or album dedication. No track was named after him. No liner music. Notes mentioned Randall Watts. In 1997, No Limit released over a dozen albums. Ice Cream Man was still moving. Ghetto D had just dropped. Tiari was charting. The Machine kept running. None of it paused for Calliope Slim. The only acknowledgement came from Master P himself years later in that FEDS magazine interview. The same interview where he didn't soften a single word about what his cousin did for a living. Richard Pena, the Kingpin, whose organization Slim enforced, pleaded guilty to federal charges in 1999. U.S. District Judge Eldon Fallon sentenced him to life without the possibility of release after Pena gave a detailed confession in exchange for prosecutors dropping their pursuit of the death penalty. He admitted to ordering or carrying out 8 murders and was fined $2, $5 million. His downfall led to the prosecution of more than 20 associates. NOPD Music. Officer David Singleton, who had been on Pena's payroll since the early 1990s, was also convicted on federal corruption charges. Terrence Gangster Williams was convicted in a separate federal case in 1998, a drug music, and continuing criminal enterprise charge that stemmed from a wiretap discussion about a heroin deal with a crew of New York dealers he was planning to rob and murder. He received a life sentence plus 20 years, but the story didn't end there. Court records show Williams began cooperating with the government almost immediately after his arrest. In Music 1999, federal prosecutors filed a motion noting his substantial assistance. He helped secure guilty pleas from co-defendants and provided information on multiple unsolved homicides. Music. This is a way I can get up out of prison. I'm not testifying on no one. Music. I'm gonna give them this here. They'll cut my time. Cool. In a Vlad TV interview years later, Williams confirmed it himself. He confessed to being involved in 40 murders across New Orleans. Music. I confessed to a lot of homicides, right? But they tried to put Randall's homicide on me. I didn't do that. In 2021, Music. Rapper Boozy posted what he said was Williams' federal paperwork on Instagram, showing that the New Orleans Cold Case I Division had credited Williams with helping close over 40 cases. Do you think cooperating about someone who's dead, is that considered snitching? In your music book? Yeah, of course. Why is, and how you know, why did he show you paperwork on it? Well, I had actually looked up some of the things. Williams' sentence was reduced to 27.5 years, and on January 3rd, 2022, he walked out Music of federal prison. The judge sealed the specific reasons for his release. The man most people in the Calliope believed killed Randall Watts walked free after 23 years. No murder charge was ever filed in connection to Slim's death. The Calliope projects were demolished beginning in 2012 Music and replaced with mixed-income development called Marrero Commons by 2014. The courtyard where Slim was shot, the courtyard where he walked his dog and I'm 'bout it, the courtyard where his pallbearers chanted, "Gangster, gangster." It's a parking lot. Now,